This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview. Joining us today is Ben Turney, the CEO of Kavango Resources. Now, following the recent fundraising, Ben, we are going to be taking a look through the deck that you've put together for Kavango Resources, really getting an overview of all the projects, the plans and the strategy. So welcome onto Stockbox. First of all, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm really good, thanks, Mark. Really good. I'm in Sweden at the moment seeing my kids. But yeah, life is good after a very successful week for Kavango.
Indeed. I guess it's quite nice to have that fundraising tucked away. It takes the stress off as we go into, the winter, and particularly at this moment in time when the markets are a little bit tough to find money, aren't they?
Yeah, well, I mean, it doesn't, Mark. I mean, sort of raising money is obviously only the first step. It's now up to us to build on the fantastic progress we've made this year in the field. We have to start to recruit more people in the team as we start to scale up. Of course, we've got the drill rig is already operational. We're going to look to extend that program. We have the KSZ to return to, and of course, all the work in detail. So yeah, I mean, we've overcome sort of one major obstacle. We've got the company now funded, we believe, until the end of next year. Now the hard work really begins as we look to deploy those funds into the field and hopefully make several major discoveries.
Okay. Well, talking about making several major discoveries, let's go through your deck.
So today's deck is the deck that we used the weekend to raise money. All of the information was already in the public domain. We just put it together in a slightly different format. So there are a number of slides that you will have seen before with some additional details put in following recent updates. But I thought it'd be quite helpful for us, Mark, just to show what we showed to investors, show what was really successful, what they really liked, and then that will help everybody understand exactly what we're going to do with these funds that we've raised.
Okay.
So to begin with, this is the overview of Kavango. We have three major projects. We've got the KCB, the Kalahari Copper Belt, where we're currently drilling. We've got 5,000 square kilometres of prospective ground across 12 licenses. Now, one of the real attractions for Kavango is that we're about to take 100% ownership of 10 of the KCB licenses that are in our Kavango Resources joint venture. That was a particular selling point to the people that have come in on this placing. They recognise the value that there is in that project already. We had it independently valued at nearly just over $8 million a bit earlier this summer. The market at the moment simply isn't reflecting that. But now that we have the funds in place, we also announced a 37,000 metre drill campaign that we've spec'd out. And we've now got funds, obviously, to go and put a major dent into that. So the Kalahari Copper Belt is really our primary focus in the short term. And it's also where we believe we have our highest chance of making a discovery. The KSZ, the Kalahari Suture Zone, of course, that's always been our flagship project. That's, I believe, what Kavango is best known for at the moment. We obviously had our drill campaign that finished there in February. Unfortunately, we missed that B conductor. I'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. We've done quite a lot of follow-up work on the KSZ over the course of this year, including, of course, Richard Hornsey's report. Now, Richard really is one of the leading authorities in nickel exploration worldwide. We currently have a process ongoing with Tamasys Partners, where we're looking to recruit joint venture partners into this project. And having had someone with Richard's weight in the industry put his name to this project and review all of our data, that has opened up for us a number of significant doors. Now, again, now that we have money in place, we're going to be doing a lot more in terms of surveying across the KSZ, looking for more drill targets, and of course, returning to those B conductors that we're really looking forward to drilling early in the new year. Finally, there's Dittal. Dittal's a bit of a wild card for us. Obviously, it started off as a carbonatite project. It's obviously it's a geophysics-led initiative of ours. The sand cover there obviously means there's no regional geology, but based on the signatures of the 12 targets we identified, the idea that Hillary put together was that these were potential carbonatites, these ring structures. Now, that idea is still very much in play. In one of the holes that we drilled earlier this year, we encountered bastanite, which of course is a rare earth element. So that tells us that there is something very interesting that's happened from the rare earth perspective. But what the real interest for us now is that the petrology report that came back has confirmed that we've actually run into an IOCG system. Now, IOCG stands for iron oxide copper gold, and these can contain huge amounts of commercial mineralization. So it's very exciting for us as a new exploration lead. And obviously that's going to guide our steps as we move forward. And I'll talk a bit about that towards the end of this presentation about what our plans are.
Okay, excellent. So you've got the 3 projects there very clearly set out with exactly what the projects are, what the license areas are, and yeah, let's look at what's going forward then.
Yeah, so next steps, really quite simple. This is all again in the public domain. We've been very clear about both the progress we've made, the foundation that we now have from an exploration perspective, and what our ideal situation would be for us to take the company forward. So in the Kalahari Copperbelt, we focused on four main license areas. In the LVR joint venture where we're currently drilling, license 082, just to the south of Hansi in the Kanye Resources joint venture, license 036, and over in the Namuno licenses that are out towards the Namibian border, licenses 49 and 52. So those have been our main area of focus over the last year. These 4 licenses are where we've concentrated this drill program that we've identified, 37,000 meters across 188 targets. We're really looking forward to keeping this rig in the field and potentially bringing a second one in. And again, now that we have the funds in place, we are in a position where we can really accelerate our efforts here on the ground. Meanwhile, down in the KSZ, as I said already, our main priority in the nearer term is going to be to drill the B conductors. We're now in a position where I think we can go back and drill those targets with confidence. So even if the result doesn't come in, it wouldn't necessarily be a project killer. But at the same time, obviously, the size of these targets, in particular the B1 conductor, that's giving off this high, very, very strong level of conductance. And we believe we just missed with our borehole back in February. That really is a top grade exploration target for nickel exploration. But what we're also particularly excited about is, remember that we have the strategic hold over the KSZ. We've now proven that the combination of TDEM and CSAMT technologies, these are the right technologies to use across this area, and we're the first company ever to deploy this tech to this region. So while we have this strategic hold over this project, it makes sense for us to roll this technology out, because we have been constrained by resources, obviously, up to this point. We've been constrained by finance. So we've only performed a limited number of these types of surveys across the license area. There's a huge amount for us still to go for. And at this stage, we simply don't know what's out there. We've got an area, which is equivalent to the Fraser Range in Australia, which of course yielded the Nova Bollinger discovery. We could well find that there are even better targets than these B conductors, which are just waiting for us to survey. So we're very excited to get Kaz Lotter and his team from Spectral Geophysics out into the field as quickly as we can, so that we can really start to understand more about what this region might contain. And in parallel to that, we have the efforts with Tamas's partners. They are going extremely well. We'll be providing an update on that very soon about the interest there's been and the number of NDAs that we have already signed up. We have people in the data room at the moment, which again is very encouraging. So my next main focus moving forward is going to be on looking at bringing in a joint venture partner or partners to help us scale up our activity in the KSZ. Finally, down at Ditau, we've already met our spending commitments at Ditau in the current license periods following the drilling earlier this year. So our next steps there are going to be to roll out more of the surveying technologies. And again, I'll provide more detail on this as we go through the presentation. But here is going to be a much lower cost form of exploration while we understand more about what the subsurface geology might look like, with a view to building up a portfolio of drill targets for us then to return to drilling at some point during 2023.
So are you going to drill, when are you going back to drill in the KSZ and Ditau, Ben? Of course you are drilling at the KCB at the moment.
Yeah, so as this slide shows, we are currently drilling in the KCB. That's our main area of focus, certainly for the rest of this year. In terms of drilling the KSZ, the drill team that was so successful for us on the last campaign, they're currently engaged by Power Metal Resources. They're drilling down at the Malopo Farms project. Our hope is that as soon as those guys are finished down there for Power, we'll be able to take the same team and the same rig back up to the KSZ. That rig can get down to, I believe, around about 1,300 meters. They've got a slightly more powerful rig on site down there, but we're confident that those guys who are performing that drilling, they are the right people to drill for us in the KSZ. So as soon as they're available again, I'm hoping we'll be able to deploy them, hopefully as early as Q1 next year, as soon as the Malopo Farms contract is out of the way. In terms of the detail drilling, at this stage, it's a bit early for us to commit to exactly when we're going to drill. We're certainly going to return to that I-10 target. The fourth hole that we drilled there, that remained open at depth. So we certainly want to go and re-enter that. It's a secure hole. It was cased down to, I can't remember the exact number of meters, but we will be able to re-enter that hole and chase that system deeper into its guts. But of course, we want to go and drill test some of the other targets as well. But before we do that, we need to build up a more comprehensive picture of exactly where the best targets might be for us to pursue.
Okay, well, let's talk about the KCB then, where the current activities are.
Yeah, so there's obviously been quite a big change there over the last week. We announced last week that we've changed the drill strategy slightly. This has been as a result of the results we've had coming in from the field, particularly the CSAMT. Now, we're extremely excited about what we've seen from this controlled source audio magnetotelluric surveys. They've given us incredibly clear definition on what we believe is the underlying stratigraphy, and which basically means the rock layers. And what we've seen so far in the drilling, the layers and the levels do seem to correspond with what the CSAMT is telling us. Now, from an exploration perspective, that is extremely good news. Doesn't mean we've got mineralization yet, but what it does mean is that we're identifying the right structures, and that is a big step forward when it comes to making a discovery for this deposit style of copper silver deposits. Now, what the change that we've made is that the original plan was to perform RC drilling down to target depth. But what we've actually decided to do now is we're doing what's called pre-collaring of our holes with RC. So we're taking them down to about 150 to 200 meters using RC, which is a much cheaper form of drilling. It's a much quicker form of drilling as well. We're going to work through all 6 targets, pre-collar them down to whichever level the CSAMT tells us. Because what we have in the field is what's called a multi-purpose rig. So this is a drill rig that's capable of doing RC drilling, reverse circulation, and also diamond core drilling. So once we've completed all of the RC pre-collars on the 6 targets, the 6 first targets, I should say, we're then going to return to each of these with the diamond drill bit using the same rig. So they need to swap the equipment over and optimize the rig for diamond drilling. And we'll then drill what's called a diamond tail. In terms of the depth that we go down to with these diamond tails, we're expecting around about 150 meters extra, so to a depth of about 300 meters or so. And the point about that, Mark, is that where RC returns to surface rock chips, diamond core drilling obviously returns these cylindrical cores, these rock core samples, which tell us a lot more about the subsurface geology, the stratigraphy, alteration zones, and hopefully will give us clear leads towards mineralization. Now, our main focus at the moment is to prove that we have this contact point between 2 rock formations, the Dakar Formation and the Nguako Pan. That's very important because all of the mineralization across the KCB that's been discovered, these large-scale copper deposits, they're all controlled at this contact point. So if it turns out we have correctly been able to identify this contact point using CSAMT, and the diamond core drills that we've managed to bring to surface confirm that, that's going to be an amazing exploration vector as we move forward, surveying our ground, but also, of course, it opens up all sorts of other potential for us to partner with other companies as well. So touch wood, we're on the verge of doing something really quite special in exploration terms in this region, and fingers crossed that we have mineralization on our properties for us to find.
Okay, well, that's a good brief overview there to the KCB. Of course, we did do that special feature just last week, I think it was, Ben, or perhaps the week before, where we really went into detail on the exploration plans there at the KCB. So I would recommend investors go and look at that if they really want to get an idea of the exploration plans and the drill program. But can you quickly now take us through then the other 2, the KSZ and, of course, DITA, which are not currently active, but will be in due course?
Yeah, so in the KSZ, this image here is pretty much sums up exactly what our plan is. So you can see the B1 conductor, which is currently being modelled at 14,300 Siemens. We've had extra work that's been done on that over the last few months. We'll have results on that very soon, where we've cited the drill collar locations for coming and testing this target again. We're certainly going to put 2 more holes into that. And our current plan at the moment is to put a further 2 holes into each of the other 2 targets, B3 and B4, that we announced earlier this year. So that's going to be a pretty constrained drill program that we'll look to complete in Q1 next year. But the main efforts really will be on deploying the TDEM and CSAMT technology across the KSZ. So this is the northern section where we'll be focusing most of our efforts to begin with. So Kaz Lotter and his team will be deploying in the next week or so with the first TDEM surveys. We'll then get Hilary and his team down to start working on the CSAMT. And as you can see from this grid approach, we're going to look to hit the entire KSZ with these Scout TDEM surveys. We don't know what's out there at the moment, and our hope is obviously that we'll be able to identify even better quality drill targets than those that we've already found. The key strength for Kavango here is that we have the strategic hold over this entire region. So we are the first to use the technology down here, and that can give us a real competitive advantage. And we're looking forward very much to what these results will tell us, and hopefully will take us towards a major nickel discovery. Meanwhile, in the KSZ South, the program is again very similar. Now, this is a slightly different exploration project now. From Richard Hornsey's report, one of the surprises that we had is that Richard's results and his work really highlighted the platinum group element potential of the KSZ South. So where the Proterozoic gabbros, which are about 1 billion years old, are much deeper in the KSZ North, to the south of the Zoutfontein fault, the Proterozoic is much closer to surface, and where it is closer to surface, it might even have been weathered historically. Now, that's very interesting for us because one of Richard's conclusions was that these rocks were particularly enriched with PGEs. Now, PGE exploration is a very different exploration style to the nickel copper sulfides we're looking for in the KSZ North. So we are going to trial some TDEM surveys down here, more of a test than anything, and see if we can identify any conductor targets. But it's not really conductor targets that you're looking for in PGE exploration. You're looking for structure, and that's why the CSAMT surveys will be running. Those will be much more important in this region. So again, we're going to be releasing some news on this and an update on this with our specific plans in the next week or so. But it really is very interesting that this project has got this very clear divide between north and south. And again, now that we have the funds in place, we can really start to pursue this exploration targets.
Okay, excellent. So that suggests that the work is going on in the background at the moment. Would you go straight back there with the drills, do you think, after KCB?
Good question. So I think in terms of the KSZ South, we could well use the same rig because the Proterozoic is so much closer to surface. It might even be possible for us to do a limited RC campaign to get down to the Proterozoic so we can do some geochemical testing. Now, again, we don't know this yet until we've done some more of the CSAMT surveys, but that's certainly an idea that we're looking at the moment. Again, that could open up all sorts of possibilities for us in terms of exploration because it would be that much easier than the deeper targets that we're looking for in KSZ North. So yeah, that's certainly a possibility, Mark.
Okay, right. So finally, Ditto then, what's going on there?
Well, Ditto, we had these wonderful red rocks that we encountered from about 293 meters. We now know that these are an indicator of an IOCG system. This was a surprise for us. It wasn't part of the original exploration model, but now that we have this physical evidence, it's the first IOCG mineralization that's been encountered in Botswana to our knowledge. We haven't been able to find anything in the public domain that suggests an IOCG system has been found, which is slightly surprising when you consider where Botswana sits on the western edge of the Cap Vert Craton. Now, these cratonic edges around the world are associated with IOCG mineralization. So it is the right sort of geological setting. Our belief is that because of these deep Kalahari sands, this could well be why these types of deposits haven't been encountered yet. So this is certainly a first for Botswana. It's a first for Kavango, but it's a very, very clear exploration lead for us to pursue. So in terms of the next steps, what we have here are our plans for further CSAMT and gravity surveys. As I mentioned earlier, the CSAMT enables us to map structure. Again, for IOCG, that's extremely important. That can really help guide your drill targeting. But the gravity surveys, they look for differences in the relative gravity readings of different rock types subsurface. Basically, the denser the readings you get, the more likelihood there is of accumulations of mineralization, which can be a key characteristic for IOCG style deposits. So the survey types that you can see on the right here will be running extensive gravity over all of our 12 targets across Ditto, and we look forward to publishing the results of those. That will be work that will start in the new year, and that will continue through to the end of H1 next year. So again, we're very much in drill targeting stage at this phase of exploration, but the results now that we've got this clear much clearer lead of what to look for. We think that's going to help us in terms of defining our geophysics and hopefully make our drill targeting much more accurate.
Okay, good. So again, work going on there in the background, preparing for when you can get the rigs back. Is that the idea?
Yeah, again, I mean, with this one, we need to do a lot more preparation. Ditto is more complicated to drill because there isn't so much water available locally. That's the main challenge down there. The same crew that's going to drill for in the KSZ for us, they also ran the successful campaign down in Ditto, so we know that they can do it. But we have to make sure that we plan this campaign very, very carefully because it is a challenging area for us to work in, but we've shown that we can do it. So it's not just a case of having the rig, it's also a case of having the right rig crew to operate that rig. So this will be something we expect to return to a bit later on in 2023.
Okay, well, thank you very much. That really does set out on a quite a high level what the plan is for Kavango with exploration. Of course, ongoing drilling at the KCB, where we can look out for some drill results to come, and then get an idea of what's going to come on the other projects as we go into 2023. And of course, mostly fully funded, all fully funded with, of course, the recent raise.
Exactly. It's very exciting, Mark. I mean, everything I've described to you here now, we won't obviously do the full 37,000 metres at the KCB, but we'll certainly put a big dent into that with these funds. But the rest of the programs, these are now all funded for us to pursue aggressively. So it's exciting for us, exciting for the team, and we really can't wait to get cracking with the work.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Ben Turney, CEO of Kavango Resources.
Thanks for having me.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stopboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.